Hey guys, Khalid from Cricket Fanatics magazine here with another episode of Legends with Ravi. Today, as you can see by the title, we're going to be talking about Stephen Cook. Now, this is something definitely that you can educate me on, although I did see some of him play. I did watch some of his matches, I did watch him play for a while. But I mean, with regards to domestic cricket, I think that you maybe have a little bit more insight into his domestic game and in his career. We are going to get him on board as well. We're just going to wait for him to connect, and then we'll bring him into the conversation, so you can have a conversation with him too and get to know him better too, Ravi. So, first of all, how's it? And welcome to the show again. And what have you been up to this week?
Hi, Carly. Thanks for having me again. Greatly appreciated. 3 weeks in a row. I'm glad you haven't cancelled me as yet. That's greatly appreciated. So far, so good. Lots of things happening on the business end, and definitely a lot happening at Wits University as well. But yeah, I'm hoping we'll look for a little bit more intensity in the days to come.
Cool, that's awesome. So let's get right into it. Tell me about Stephen. What have you enjoyed about his career? What stood out to you, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I've been a fan of Stevens for shucks. It must be over 15, maybe close to 20 years. I've been following his career since his time leaving King Edward High School, not the hospital in Durban. It's just King Edward High School in Gauteng. And we've been following his exploits largely because we more or less from the same generation, same time. And there were a lot of guys that would school with me that I've actually went to university with eventually. That played a lot of Nuffield cricket and a lot of cricket against Stephen himself. So his name sort of echoed among the school sort of fraternity. And I would have to say he flourished particularly with the Lions. His first class career is sublime 45 first class centuries, if memory serves. And of course, there was a point in his career, in his first class career at least, where we thought, this time has sort of passed by, and Graham has had his time in the sun. Now he's just retired, Graham Smith. What's the likelihood of seeing Stephen Cook? And then, of course, the England series and back in 2016 happened, and that's where Stephen Cook just jumped onto the international scene to show what he was capable of. Fantastic batsman. Uh, what a classic opener, if you had to ask me. He's got all the shots in the book. He's not necessarily an aggressive batsman, but he tends to play beautiful cover drives. I've seen some fairly good cover drives from the likes of Steven Smith and Virat Kohli. But if you followed Steven's career as long as I have, you would tend to appreciate those types of shots from him as well. Fantastic batsman. I really am appreciative of the fact that the selectors finally took favor upon him and actually brought him into the fold, the international fold.
Yeah, awesome. But with regards to that, is there a particular innings that you particularly can remember with this time at the Lions that really stood out to you? Is there one that you can maybe pick out?
The 390 against the Warriors, definitely the 390 against the Warriors. So Daryl Cullinan's record, I think he scored 334 if memory serves. That has been a long-standing first-class record for years. And for the life of me, I never thought anybody would come close to breaking it unless Brian Lara were to immigrate to South Africa and do it. I don't think anybody in South Africa would be capable or would come close to breaking Daryl's record. And Stephen did it, I would say, just over a decade ago, if memory serves. He scored 390, and it was quite a majestic innings. Some say he carried his bat for the entirety of the innings as well. He had a long-standing partnership with Tommy Solakele, who was a wicketkeeper for the Lions at the time. And in my opinion, I thought after that innings, I thought to myself, we might see this guy make his debut round about that period, that 2009-2010 period. You see, Herschel retired, or he kind of like concluded his career with the Proteas. So there's kind of like an opening for an opener, lack of a better word. And they ventured with Neil McKenzie, where we spoke about Neil last week. where he opened in 2008, 2009. And then following Neil, Alviro came into the team, and he flourished in that role as well. Ironically, Alviro and Stephen were teammates for a long time as well. They're opening partners for years. And Alviro sort of cemented that role for a good 4-5 year period. And the unfortunate thing is that inadvertently that kind of blocked Steven's chances of getting into the team. But yeah, Kavi, just to answer your question, Khalid, the 390 certainly comes into mind. And the fact that he's got 45 first class centuries certainly brings warmth to my heart. I always like to see batsmen flourish, especially in South Africa.
Cool. So obviously, I need to on this journey. I also have to bring on some help actually to get to know him better. So I thought nothing better than to bring Stephen on himself. How's it, Stephen? Evening? How you doing?
How's it? Evening. How you guys?
Good. Thanks to
Even
you.
though awesome, do the
Yeah.
electrical dance. Oh, I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that. Welcome, Stephen.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's good to be on with you guys.
Yeah. So basically, how this works is we, every single Wednesday evening, Ravi speaks to me and tries to educate me about cricket of the past, and obviously to the newer generation of fans as well out there to get to know the legends of the game. And he picked you as a legend for this week. And I really needed to get a hold of you because I think that it just livens up the whole episode. And him being a fan, and for all the articles and hard work he does for me at the store. Look, let's bring on one of his heroes. So he really wanted to speak to you. So this is the part where I kind of give it over to him and I allow him to ask you a little bit of some questions, and I'll intervene if needs be.
Awesome. Thanks, just so you know, Stephen, I do this all for free for Khalid. But anyways, thank you for being on the show and volunteering your time. I believe you just moved houses quite recently as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously everyone's been in lockdown and all of that. So I started the year, entered the second phase of my career, post cricket, I suppose, and made the move down to Cape Town to work with SACA Players Association, and had actually just gone back to Joburg to go fetch the family to move them down a couple of days before our lockdown was announced. So I ended up spending 2 months in Johannesburg working online, I should say. And just this weekend made the move back down to Cape Town. So left Cape Town in summer and arrived firmly in winter.
Oh, lovely, man. Lovely. The fantastic location to
Another
move
one.
to as well.
Fact.
Another one in Cape Town, eh? I just left Cape Town. Awesome. And tell me about this new role before we talk about your career. Would you mind telling the cricket fanatics a little bit about this new role at SACA? What's your involvement specifically with him?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, while I was playing, I was involved with the SACA, the Players Association, on their Exco. And I mean, SACA does absolutely fantastic work behind the scenes, and sometimes gets pushed into the forefront. I mean, I think it was well publicized in the media the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, the issues with SACA and CSA, especially over the domestic restructure. But for a number of years, probably 8 to 10 years, I've been on the Exco of that while I played. So having studied law, while I played my career, it was something that really interested me, and it sounds all high and mighty maybe, but it is a way to give back. I mean, there were guys who were in these roles who as when I was a young player really made a difference to my career and allowed me to focus on what was going on the field. And so in some way I like to give back, but I'd like to think I've accumulated a bit of knowledge and a bit of network over the years, and just to really bring the off-field and the on-field a bit closer together. So so my title is sort of cricket operations and player engagement. So just making sure that there's a really strong bond between the association and the players, and that everyone's looked after. So so certainly starting early days in this new job, but it's been really fantastic there. Andrew Brzezinski's taken over as CEO from Tony Irish, who went to the UK, and it's been an exciting couple of months. Obviously, COVID and everything that's gone with it has thrown a few spanners in the works, but I suppose it's if you want to be at the coalface, this is the time to be in cricket, I suppose.
Absolutely, and we wish you well in your new role.
Thank you.
Tell me, so you're a King Edward matriculant, right? If memory serves, quite a few famous names also attended the school with you. Was there any sort of pressure at the time being a King Edward with high performing cricketers attending at the same time? If memory serves, Graham Smith was also more or less in that time period, perhaps a year, grade or two ahead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, very, very blessed to have gone to King Edward's. Yeah, played with a number of really top cricketers. Graham, obviously, being the most high profile. We opened for the first team for a couple of years. He was a year ahead of me at school. So, I mean, as was mentioned in the lead up, sort of quite an ironic thing that two guys who batted together at school, I had to wait for him to have a 100-test career, captain his country, retire before I even got a crack. So, yeah, quite ironic. And I mean, the fact that I mean, he's now director of cricket at CSA, and I'm sort of on the other side, but working hand in hand with at Saka, in a way, sort of gone full circle. So yeah, so from school days to now working as sort of together in some ways. So yeah, I mean, a number of other guys. I mean, Dane Velas was a bit below me. Vaughan van Jaarsveld, he played a little bit. Our careers at King Edward's overlapped a little bit, but obviously since then and whatever, a lot of good players to come out of it, and Neil Mackenzie's, your Adam Buckers before me. So yeah, part of a pedigree there, and yeah, I mean pressure in a way, but also opportunity in a way. So yeah, I certainly probably think opportunity outweigh the pressure.
Absolutely. I mean, there must be one hell of an honor sport there, King Edward, right? Yeah. I mean, my only claim to fame at St. Joseph's College is that Herschel Gibbs went to our primary school and Desmond Haynes actually fetched his kids from our high school. That's the closest we've ever come to international cricket, I'm afraid. But coming back to you, Stephen, you made your debut against England in 2016. What were the emotions that were going through? I'm sure, if memory serves, again, you weren't part of the initial squad, and I remember there was almost a public outcry, almost exclaiming, "We need to have Stephen Cook in there. He's actually an opener." The people literally banging on the door of the Cricket South Africa management at the time. What was your feelings going into that match? I'm sure there must have been a variety of emotions going into it.
Yeah. I mean, leading up to being picked, I mean, I played in the SAA game at the start of that series, the warm-up game, and I got a few runs there, and I'd been doing well domestically, so I knew I was pretty close. I mean, the selectors stayed in touch and said, "Listen, you're pretty close, but we're going to keep backing Stian for a little bit longer." So I wasn't in the squad initially. You're right. And during that series, sort of, I think Broad and the guys had it over that top order at the time, and I managed to get a couple of hundreds for the Lions at the time, and yeah, as you said, there was a lot of pressure. I mean, social media, it was probably one of the first times where social media really applied a lot of pressure. I mean, there was a real upswell of support, and that was really encouraging for me. I mean, you feel that and you go with it. And then I suppose making my debut, getting that call after all those years, it was strange because I mean I wasn't that nervous actually, to be fair. I think I'd been prepared for that moment for so long, and
For a long
said
time.
to myself that this is the I only dreamt of one test, so I'm going to certainly enjoy this test, and I'm going to make the most of it. And it might be the only one I ever play. And I went out there, and maybe it was a bit of experience. Maybe it was that I was in good form. I think that sometimes helps, is picking a guy when he's actually batting well. You can go out there and have clear thoughts, and just what an amazing experience. But the sort of probably downside of that is, I'd always been content for one test, but having had a taste and having done well on my debut, you just want more and more and more. So it's that never satisfied sort of cricketer, well, human being that came to mind, and then I just wanted more and more.
Well, 19 innings at the age of 33 isn't bad going at all. Wonderful stuff. How was you mentioned your feelings about it? How was the feelings in the Cook family as a whole? I'd imagine Mr. Jimmy Cook himself must have been a bit anxious as well. He must have been also a mixture of emotions at home leading up to the first test. To your first test, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the old man, his test debut, he was caught first ball for a duck. So yeah, in the
I
days
remember that.
before, he was sort of saying to me, "Listen, my boy, if you just survive the first one, you've done better than me. So like, I've set the bar really low for you on this one." So yeah, it's always good banter. I mean, my old man never put any pressure on me. He was always supportive. Yeah, he cancelled. He had a business trip to Dubai, which he put on hold. I phoned him the night before. I said, "Listen, you can't get on that plane. I'm playing at Centurion tomorrow." So yeah, wonderfully special. I really loved that he was there. I mean, he played such a massive role, as did everyone else in my family. I mean, to have my wife and daughter there, my mom, or because it's a really selfish thing, professional sports. Sometimes you get into your little bubble, and everyone sort of works around you, making sure you live out your dream. So, number one, to let them share in it a bit was really good, because I mean they've sacrificed a whole lot. So yeah, especially for my old man, who, I mean, he threw me balls since I was a little nipper. So
Well, I was deeply relieved when two of my favorite triple centurions in South Africa, which is you and Riley Rousseau, of course, at least made some sort of inroads in South African cricket. But coming back to the Legends with Ravi show, I'm not sure if you're aware, but last week we did a profile on your ex-colleague, Neil McKenzie, and we spoke about his many, many, many superstitions. Are you able to confirm at least one or two of them on the show tonight? What those were like?
yeah, Neil McKenzie and his superstitions. I mean, geez, I'll tell you what, if I had a book, I'd take up a chapter. No, but firstly, I mean, Mackie, probably the guy who, I mean, outside of my old man, probably had the most profound effect on my career. From a guy who I played with, but was the batting coach when I played my test matches for South Africa, and just a really top guy and good mate. So I owe a lot to him. But yeah, those superstitions. I mean, some of the things he used to end up doing. I mean, after a while, when you've batted with him so many times, you become a bit sort of oblivious. But certainly in his younger days, they were extreme. I mean, the toilet seats being all down, bats taped to walls, all of that sort of
You
stuff.
see, Khalid, I wasn't joking about that, Khalid. You just confirmed it.
Yeah, no, there was there was some interesting stuff that went on. And towards the end, it was a little bit more under control, but still, I mean, like, so at the end of the over, if you walked a little bit too much into his half of the pitch, he had to balance that out. So you'd hear these footsteps coming down behind you if you'd been a bit over eager between the overs, and if you used to see young guys who came into the team who hadn't batted with him before, you could see they had no clue what this guy was on about. They
What
thought
was going on?
but after a while, you knew exactly. I mean, he wouldn't step on the white lines. I mean, he used to mark his guard and then look down to fine leg, almost like he was expecting a bounce to every ball. If he wasn't such a good player with a short ball, you would have thought he was petrified of where deep backward square was.
Now, we mentioned you're a triple centurion, and sorry, Khalid, I'm sure you have a few questions of your own, but we mentioned that you're a triple centurion. So you scored 390 against the Warriors. At any point during that innings, did you think Brian Lara scored 501, Hanif Mohammed scored 400 plus? I'm going to go for these records. Did you ever think these are the accolades I'm going to go for? I'm going to cement my place in South African cricket history right now.
Yeah, I mean, to cut an extremely long story short, I mean, overnight at the end of the third day, I was 201 not out. I thought we were going to declare that was the plan. And then somehow the negotiations of what the target was going to be broke down. And Dave Nosbury, the coach, came to me and said, "Stephen, if there's ever a chance to get a massive one, we're not declaring. You can bat all day." And obviously I batted with
Lovely.
Tommy sort of Kelly. It was, sort of once in a lifetime opportunity to just bat. And to be honest, the main thing for me was to get past my old man's record. I mean, he had 313 as his score. I mean,
Right.
you couldn't get more than that. So, to me, that was actually the big one. Once I got past that, then sort of I didn't really think too much. Got past Daryl Cullen's record, which made it the South African record. And then sort of I went into a bit of like a blur where I was just batting. I mean, the runs are flowing. You're seeing the ball so sweet. And I actually
Like a
came
beach
off.
ball, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I came off at day 4 tea time, and obviously the boys in the change room, Neil Mack leading the charge there. Guys ecstatic. I mean, 319 not out in a session still to bat, and sitting at my place in the dressing room, the guys had got and printed out off one of the websites, obviously all the highest first class scores of all time anywhere in the world, and I sat down there, and in that 20 minutes, just reading those names, and you start seeing, well, yes, I only need a couple to get to Bradman, and I only need a couple to get to Lara, and like you have never thought of yourself in that way before, of getting a score that high. And it was amazing because I walked straight out there after tea, and I knew something was different. I didn't quite have that focus. I'd obviously, something hadn't switched back on. It was LBW's second ball after the tea break for 390. And I mean, it's the weirdest thing. You're so happy, I mean, what you've achieved. And yet you're walking off saying, I mean, why not 400? I mean, how many more chances are you going to get? So I mean, it was a strange couple of days out in the sun, I can tell you that much. But yeah, really honored to have done that. But I always felt that that wasn't going to define me. It wasn't going to define who I was as a player. I could be so much more, or in cricket and post cricket. I think it's so easy for guys who achieve something or one big performance that becomes what they're about. And people only ever talk about that. So it was really key for me that I reframed what I was about and set new goals. And maybe that was the start of the push towards playing for South Africa. It was sort of laying your claim there, stepping out of the pack.
Yeah,
absolutely. Awesome. I've just got one more question, Khalid, and I promise I'm going to hand him over to you. So, Stephen, after many years of being overlooked, I think, in all fairness, you were competing with the likes of Gary Kirsten, Herschel Gibbs. Had a lovely list here. Your old counterpart, Neil McKenzie himself. After many years, I've had to draw a comparison to the players at the moment. Quite a few are committing their futures elsewhere, going overseas, playing Shield cricket, going to New Zealand, going to England. What sort of prevented you from doing that? Because I mean, I'm sure there must have been a couple offers coming your way. You could have potentially committed your future elsewhere. What made you stick around?
Well, I suppose in some ways it was actually made easier for me in that sort of the Kolpak ruling actually changed around the time I started actually playing pretty well. So you had to have that test cap to go effectively. So I mean, it wasn't like it was even really an option. But I always had that dream. I wanted to play for South Africa, and I knew that if I did, then good things would come. And it was probably more of a thought right at the back end of my career. But having said that, I mean, I got to 36, and you start to how many years do you really have? So yeah, in a way, I mean, in my couple of overseas stints in county cricket, I didn't do as well as I would have liked, and maybe had I done better there, I could have finished off like a Morne Morkel or one of those sort of guys in England with a couple of years there, county cricket. Maybe one of my sort of ifs and buts. Maybe I could have had a better time in England. My county record wasn't great, but I would have loved the challenge of it. But yeah, I mean, I was always passionate. Maybe it's easier because my old man had played for South Africa and it was in the blood, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, it's such a complicated topic that going overseas. I mean, that's a show and a half by itself. But yeah, I suppose each into their own, and I mean, different guys have motivations for different ways. So I can't speak for them. But I mean, for me, it wasn't really a tough decision. Only really towards the back end, once my international career was over. I mean, once Aiden Markram got picked and whatever, I knew he was the real deal. So I wasn't getting my spot back. So I made peace with that. And yeah, if a county thing had come up, then I would have taken it. But yeah, happy in what I achieved and happy with my career. And to be fair, happy in retirement. I mean, I haven't picked up a bat for a year and a bit now, and maybe it owing to the fact that I'm still involved. Not a club game, not a.
I'm surprised. Game, I'm very surprised. Really?
Yeah, don't worry. I surprised myself too. I thought the bat's in the back of the garage there, and yeah. So yeah, I'm sure. I'll
did you at least? Sorry, did you at least find a house in Cape Town with a backyard net? So you can do a couple throwdowns or have a net session or two before work at least.
Yeah. I mean, my 5-year-old daughter. I mean, who knows? Maybe she plays for the Proteas women one day. I mean, I don't know. Who knows?
I'll have a
awesome. Khalid, over to you.
Yeah. So, Stephen, what I want to know is something a little bit more about the opening role. You don't get to speak to very often to opening batsmen and get to know behind the psyche about it, and it is said to be one of the toughest positions to bat in South Africa in South African conditions. Can you give me some insight into that, the mentality behind being an opening batsman? What are the toughest things that you face, and also if you can give some lessons to those youngsters out there that are also aspiring to be Proteas opening batsman one day?
Yeah, I mean, opening the batting, blessing and a curse. I mean, in South Africa, traditionally pretty tough, bouncy wickets, a little bit in it with a new ball. I mean, even on the domestic circuit, a number of good fast bowlers, never mind on the international stage. So certainly tough work there. Having said that, on your good days, and this is how I always like to view it, if I could get in and get past that new ball, I had all day to bat, and it was only going to get easier and easier. And I mean, playing at the Wanderers, I knew that tough up front, hard work, but value for shots once I got in. Potch also another home ground, amongst others. So yeah, pros and cons to it all. Probably in South Africa suited me that my back foot game was probably better than my front foot game. So that suited me, that I didn't mind the ball short. So that was maybe a plus for me. But yeah, certainly got to be mentally up for it, and you've got to be able to deal with failure, because you're going to get your nothings. And I mean, I think that's what helped me to have a long career, was to be able to put those failures, to the back of my mind. Obviously analyze and make sure you're doing what you could, but every now and then you got that really good delivery and you nicked off for naught, and you had to watch everyone else plunder runs all day. But it probably made me more hungry when I got in. So, one criticism of my career was I was a bit of a 0 to 100 sort of guy. But it was also part and parcel of opening the batting, especially at the Wanderers for my whole career. I mean, I remember one season, I think it was the year before I got picked for South Africa, or might have been that same season, where I think in my 15 or 16 first-class innings, I got 400s and about 5 ducks. So, I mean, that pretty much summed up what it was like, batting in South Africa. The one thing that is particularly tough is, especially when you come up against really good new ball bowlers, if you come up against a Philander or one of those guys, you're always having to face that guy at the toughest time. And if they get it over you, it becomes really difficult. You know what I mean? So you had like, you played against the Cobras, you had Kleinfeld and Philander, who were, they just never let you get away. You once they had it over you, you were in trouble. I mean, Andrew Birch down at the Warriors was a tricky customer. I mean, a good pro, never played for South Africa, but terrible to face that new ball. Your Ryan McLarens, those sort of guys, like not always seen as your amazing sort of international players, but you're so solid there with the new ball. So, those sort of challenges, I mean, that's what I loved. I mean, there's nothing better than, seeing through a new ball spell from Philander. You sort of, I mean, and maybe getting back to one of your earlier questions about, making my test debut, the fact that I knew I'd overcome and faced guys like Philander and Kleinfeld and those guys, you knew, hey, when it comes time for Broad or Anderson, I'm not far off. I mean, I've got to face some of the best around. So, strong domestic cricket is obviously a key thing, and we need to keep that moving forward, because that's going to keep our project strong.
Yeah, so 2 more from me before we get into the fan questions, because I don't want to get there. They're on here to obviously ask you a few questions. But the one is, there's guys like Rassi that you've played with, Riza Hendricks, there's Bjorn Fortuyn, guys like that, in that side that you would have seen or seen grow up and played with, etc. Can you give me some insight into those guys' mentality and what makes them special players? A guy like, there was a story about someone like Ian Mulder, who came into the dressing room first with his school uniform on. I don't know if you actually can give us some insight into that story.
Yeah. I was captain of the Lions at the time, and obviously we knew Vian was a schoolboy prodigy, and he'd done his business at S under 19 and all of that. And I invited him down to training, and in he walked in his school uniform. I tell you what, no. But I tell you what, very quickly the boys went from who's the schoolboy coming down to our nets. The minute that he hit that first cover drive and bowled that away swinger, you knew this guy was a special talent. And he's obviously been a bit unfortunate with his injuries, but hopefully that he can have a good career. Rusty van der Dussen, fantastic player. I mean, I always backed him 100%. I always knew he was going to be the real deal. He had to be patient, much like me. I mean, we shared many an evening meal chatting about careers and stuff. I've been blessed to play with some fantastic guys, both, when I was younger, your Adam Buchers, your Neil McKenzie's, looking up to those guys, H.D. Ackerman, Justin Ontong. But then also at the back end of my career, doing the same. And hopefully you make an impact to those guys. You're Dwayne Pretorius, Those sort of guys who now coming through, and you think that culture we got going at the Lions, and I mean we went through some ups and downs, but that time with Jeff Tuyana as coach, there was a lot of good work done, and then Enoch came in and obviously followed on from there. So yeah, it's not surprising to see a number of those guys coming through and showing their worth.
Yeah, that was my second question, is about Jeffrey Tuyana and Enoch Nkwe. Can you give me some insight into Jeff as a coach? Because we obviously here we can see it. I've seen it with his time with Northerns. I can see it when he was with the Paul Rocks as well, his approach and how many players trust him and love him as a coach. Can you give me some insight into Jeffrey Tuyana as well as Enoch?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, I knew as a coach a lot more. I mean, that coach-captain relationship, we worked together for 4 or 5 years as a sort of pair in many ways. And, the thing that made Jeff stand out, probably, I mean, even by his own admission, not the most technically gifted coach in terms of coaching batting, but certainly a sort of coach that the players want to play for. And I think that is so crucial at the top end. The guys wanted to do well for him. And that's really important. And, he'd give a bit of leeway, maybe to his detriment sometimes. He was willing to give a bit of rope, a bit of flexibility. But I think with the right team, that can be a really powerful approach. And with a couple of good, strong senior players around, when Neil was around and myself and Elvira and what have you, we built up a really strong unit. So yeah, just a fantastic guy, genuine guy, down to earth, not one of these sort of not to be demeaning, but sort of manager coaches. He's not a hard grafter. He's going to get down and dirty there. He'll rock up in his tracksuit and he'll throw till his arm falls off. And that goes a long way. The players love that sort of work ethic. And I suppose in many ways, Enoch was sort of a little bit different to him. Enoch sort of came more from that more managerial type of coach, which has its place. I think every coaching style is dependent on the team, and I mean the team that Enoch took over suited that sort of style. The guys were finished products technically. They had enough guys around, enough knowledge and enough experience to be able to play, and he just had to put in place the right system. So obviously Enoch and I are a bit different. We played together quite a lot in our early part of our careers, and coming through Gauteng and B-sides and what have you. So yeah, it was certainly a bit of an interesting relationship with coach and senior player who were actually teammates. So yeah, I mean, I only had 1 year under him, but I'm sure he'll go far in his coaching journey. He's always a guy who wants to learn and improve, and that's always important to me. That a coach is not stagnant. He's looking to improve and constantly improve himself. Yeah.
Cool. So I just want to get into the comment section quickly. There's one from Bevan that wants to know, who was the toughest bowlers that you have faced? Maybe you can give us some in domestic level and then some international.
Yeah, toughest bowlers. I mean, geez, I got to face a couple. I mean, personally, the left arm seamers always troubled me more than the right arm seamers, probably in general, and that showed in my Test career. I mean, Mitchell Starc was certainly had it over me. I mean, if he wrote a book one day, he can put Bunny next to my name. That'll be fair enough. I won't dispute that. Trent Bolt, much the same. Found him really difficult to face. Just those angles of the left arm, I found really tough when they could swing it back at you and push it across you. So yeah, so those two really, really tough. Our domestic bowler is Dale Steyn, champion, best South African bowler I faced. Just had everything, had the pace, had the swing, had the skill, the works, and a fierce competitor. You knew if you were batting against him, you were up against it. Philander, superb skill. Just showed that even without huge pace, you could be mightily effective. So he was absolutely deadly. Yeah, in my early part of my career, facing a guy like Charles Willoughby, another left arm seamer, I find incredibly difficult. Alan Dawson. So it's often when you face a guy and where. I mean, I remember I faced Makai and Tini a couple of times on a nice flat Buffalo Park wicket, and I thought, okay, well I can manage this. And then I faced him once or twice at the Wanderers, and I thought, oh my goodness. This is not the bowler I faced there. So sometimes you can get lucky or unlucky when you face a bowler, but yeah, blessed to have faced them. I mean, stories to tell in terms of facing them. But one little, I mean, in terms of toughest bowlers, my toughest attack I ever faced just before the 2003 World Cup. We played a warm-up game for Gauteng against Pakistan, and it was Bowling attack that day was Wazim Akram, Waka Yunus, Mohammed Shami, Shoaib Akhtar,
Greatest attack ever.
and Shahid Afridi. No, there was nowhere to hide that day. It was just all pace, all skill, and a 21-year-old Stephen Cook who was way out of his depth. So, yeah, in terms of a collection of guys, that day was never to be repeated. I don't think even that Aussie attack of Hazelwood, Stark, and them were quite as formidable. Maybe if I'd been 21, they would have.
Yeah, there's one from a guy over here. He says, "Hi, Stephen. How was your experience playing county cricket? From my recall, you played for Durham."
Yeah, I had 2 stints. My first one was overseas player for Durham, up north there, Chester Street. Coldest I've ever been on a cricket field in my life. Yeah, I mean, playing cricket with 4 or 5 jerseys on was tough work, but a great time, great bunch of guys up there. It was a strange time for me. I'd just been left out of the test team. There was a test tour to England later that summer. I'd gone there to Durham, to do well for Durham and get them promoted, but also to get back into the test team. And I probably tried a bit too hard and put a bit too much pressure on myself. But I had a fantastic time there playing under Paul Collingwood, a fantastic guy, Mark Wood, Graham Onion, some real characters, and was honoured to play county cricket. I loved my time there. Only really towards the back end of that stint that I started to get some runs. So pity it didn't carry on for a bit longer. And then the next year a shorter stint at Glamorgan, which was also really good down there in Cardiff, and it gave me a taste for county cricket. As I mentioned earlier, didn't quite do as well as I would have liked in county cricket. I probably realised I needed to make a few amendments to my technique, so to counter that swinging duke ball. I mean, that was a real challenge. It wasn't the pace of it coming around your shoulders. You had these more medium paces bowling on these slightly slower wickets, so it was a different challenge.
Cool. There's 2 more from the comments, and that is, who did you look up to when you were growing up? I know you said your father, but besides him, anybody else?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, besides my old man, he was the obvious one. But I was lucky enough that I grew up around that change room of the mean machine. So there were so many heroes. I mean, Graham Pollard, Clive Rice, all of those sort of guys. They were fantastic cricketers, and I mean, they were really, really good to me.
Must have been one hell of a right.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, as a youngster, I mean, Dad has a few mates around, and round comes Graham Pollock, and those folks are talking cricket round the braai. I mean, that's why it's in my blood, the cricket and what have you. But certainly someone, Jacques Callis, Gary Kirsten, those were sort of the guys. Adam Bacher, those sort of guys. I looked up to them. I just thought real solid players and solid individuals. I mean, I was always for the character. I always looked at the character. Who were the characters who were solid and had something about them? So those guys always were a notch above.
Cool. And lastly, there's another one that just came in. So there's 2 more. Most memorable moment in cricket.
Yeah, my most memorable moment in cricket. I mean, probably that pink ball test match in Adelaide, to be fair. I mean, the test debut 100 was special. The 390 was special. But just given the circumstances, the pressure of that Adelaide test, I mean, my test place was on the line. Stark had it over me. That pink ball was a new challenge. Adelaide, 40,000 to go out there, second innings. I mean, it was my last chance saloon, so to speak. And to go out there and face those guys under lights and graft 100 there. That's just from a personal challenge and overcoming that was the highlight. Yeah.
Cool. And now Sulaiman.
I think you're facing the Australian team plus Matthew Wade.
Yeah, he was the keeper in that third test. He didn't play the first 2 tests of the series, but he made up for it in the last test. Yeah, no, but
nice,
I never minded the banter from behind. I always got worried when the guys were quiet, because then I think they thought, this guy's a walking wicket. When they gave you a little bit, then you thought, okay, maybe I've got something.
Yeah. It was a mixture of emotions there. It was a bit of a nostalgia. It's like an old school Australian slip cordon where they just keep on talking, because for a couple of years they were actually quite passive and cool. And then Matthew Wade comes in and that's all you could hear from the stump mic, nice Gary, nice Gary, nice Gary. And I was like, JP is going to have a hard time here. And then eventually he got this man out.
Yeah. So Sulaiman, your question that you asked, We did answer it early on in the show. So when we're
Okay.
done here, you can go back and go listen to it. We've got just one more over here. If you had to choose between Ben Stokes' Ashes innings or Ben Stokes' World Cup final innings, which one would you choose?
Oh, yeah, winning a World Cup. I mean, as a South African, I suppose. Yeah, that's a tough question. Hey, listen. No, I'm going to take the Ashes. I'm a test batting with number 11 to do what he did. I'll take that one. I'll take the Ashes.
Awesome. So thanks a lot, Stephen, for
Yeah,
coming on the
pleasure.
show. I'm just going to give it over to Ravi for one more. If there's anything else loose ends he wants to pick up. But thanks a lot for coming on the show, and we really enjoyed it.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's been good fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stephen. Look, I mean, I think from my side, I don't have that many questions for you per se, but maybe I'm just stealing a little bit of Khalid's thunder here. But is there perhaps any message you'd like to extend to the cricket fanatics? I mean, Khalid, how many subscribers do you guys have at the moment? About a
About
thousand
600.
plus, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, are you
Oh
talking
wow,
about?
okay.
Are you talking about where
Yeah.
exactly? Are you talking about?
Overall, basically,
Yeah.
we've got a very large coverage. We can't give you a specific number at this stage, but it's quite a big one. Have you got a message for the
Yeah.
fans?
Yeah, I mean, the the fans are what make the game. They're the key stakeholder in all of it. You know what I mean? They're the ones who come to watch. They create what it's about. So the players always love a good full crowd. They love the backing. You know, even if it's against them. You know, I mean, come in, support, and yeah, sharing that active lifestyle. I mean, we've seen in these last couple of months no live sport and just what that's meant. So hopefully we come out of this pandemic, all right, and hopefully stronger, and that sport and live sport can really take a front and center stage, and people flock to the stadiums and get their fill because, I mean, it certainly raises the players' performance and is good for all stakeholders in the game. Yeah.
Cool. So
Awesome,
thanks a
man.
lot for coming on.
Great
And
to have you on the show, man. Really, really.
yeah. And Stephen,
Yeah,
we're gonna be
pleasure.
putting this on our website, etc. And I'll send you the link later on, so if you want to watch it back and see what you had to say, etc. And what we asked you.
Perfect. No, it's been good fun, guys. Thank you very much. It's
Thanks
been
a lot.
great. Thanks.
And good luck on your new venture.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Cheers, man.
Cheers, buddy.
Cool. So, Ravi, let's just do a quick summary of everything that you've heard. That must have been an amazing experience for you. It was. I know it was for me. So just let me know.
You and your surprises. You and your little surprises, eh? Just getting these guys over, you know. But yeah, coming back to Steven, fantastic player. As I said, I've been a fan of his for many years prior to making his international debut. Um, I always wish that he made his debut as early as 2010 because I think that's where we would have seen the best of him. But that's cricket, unfortunately. It is a funny game. You need to have a sense of humor sometimes to sort of approach the game. But yeah, I'm glad he got his final soiree and he belted 300s against some formidable opposition as well.
So, guys, that's about all the time that we have for you this week. Obviously, stay tuned to all of the things that we'll be publishing going forward. Ravi's article or column is going to be up tomorrow about his T20 team. I put up mine on Tuesday, so it's going to be kind of a rebuttal in a way. You guys can look at mine, look at his, and then compare the two squads and say what you like. I mean, obviously, on Sunday evening, Daniel and I are going to be talking about that particular thing. We're going to get on board with you guys in the comment section and let you guys help us pick a best Proteas 11. I can see that Daniel's chirping in the comments already.
Daniel's
But I
got a
mean,
nice one there. I think you may as well bring her up on the screen at the question at the one where he's asking about the quotes.
give us a cricket coach he likes. You
Oh
should.
boy!
Yeah,
Wow, there's
so
so many.
at the end of the show, you can
Um,
end off with that. Let me. So basically, on Sunday we're going to be doing that on our podcast show, on a live show. So guys, join that obviously, and come help us pick our T20 squad. I say before the obviously if the India series happens, and obviously if the World 20. Um, then of course we also have obviously our knockdown show tomorrow. We're going to be having V and Libba on the show. So please, guys, bring your comments.
whoop, whoop.
Um, and putting your questions in, because I mean, he's doing me a favor on this one. He doesn't normally like to be on interviews, etc., but he's doing me a favor on this one. So please join as many people as you can. Get your friends to join, etc. And of course, you know what to do here. Subscribe, like, share this with your friends and family, and let them know that we'll be doing the show every Wednesday evening. Ravi, final words from you.
Okay, so to answer the question about the quote, I recall a commentator about 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, commentating on a game where England and the West Indies are playing. The bowler was Holding, and the batsman was Peter Willey, who ended up becoming an umpire later on. And the commentator said the following: the the bowler is Holding, the batsman is Willey. The bowler is Holding, the batsman's Willey. It's out there.
That's
Should be on the internet somewhere. Some nefarious individual must have put it on there at some point. I'll recommend it to all fanatics to give it a watch.
cool. Thanks a lot, Ravi. And you can see all our social medias on the page. You can give us a like. Ravi's is in the top right hand corner. Thank you guys for joining in, and we'll catch you again next Wednesday with the same show. Thank you.